My name is Brett Warniers, I sell NFTs, and I'm going to show you how to make animated paintings that you can sell as NFTs. In this video, I'm going to take you inside of my latest painting titled Onward. I'm going to show you the layer structure that I use to bring this animation into the third dimension, or at least create the illusion of it. I'm going to show you the original Photoshop file that all of it is based on, and I'm going to show you some of the After Effects tricks that I used in order to really bring the mountain magic of this place to life. This is a super fun project to work on. I'm definitely going to make more like it. I love the look of Parallax animation. It just makes me so incredibly happy. And if you're interested in making your own animated paintings, then you are in the right place, because I'm going to show you my After Effects breakdown of how I create this file and then how I bring it to life. Before I begin, I just want to note that this is not a beginner's tutorial. In fact, this is not really a tutorial. This is meant to inspire your own After Effects projects and give you ideas for how to make things move in your digital artwork. If you know how to make digital art, and if you have a basic understanding of keyframing and how to apply effects and masks layers in After Effects, then this is a video I think will add a lot of value to your workflow. My goal with this is to inspire your workflow by showing you my workflow. Thank you for being here. Love you. Enjoy. So what I have on the screen here now is the original After Effects file that is completely finished. It has, I believe, 52 layers here, but don't get overwhelmed because a lot of these are just duplicated layers that have been moved around to create these like various wind whirlies and various lighting layers that just kind of build up over time. The actual structure of it is fairly simple. Now, how I got all of these Parallax images, this is actually pretty straightforward. I think this is the way that most big companies do it. Each one of these mountains is its own individual layer, right? So we can open it up in Photoshop, and this is 05 mountains2.psd. And this is like one of the middle layers in here. And these are all also based from the original painting, which is called Mountain Vistas 2.psd. Now, in the original artwork, I did not plan to make this into an animation. So all of these mountains here are actually separate. Sorry, they're actually one layer here, which is honestly not quite the best way to do this because I did have to go in and separate out every single one of these mountain layers and make decisions of like this mountain here is at the same distance as this mountain over here, and then I copied that out and turned it into its own layer, which became this one. Another thing, you can see how they line up in size perfectly. They're essentially, all of these layers, despite the content of them, are going to be the same size. You want every single layer that you're going to be importing into After Effects to be at the exact same size. And the reason for that is that After Effects will automatically center whatever content it is that you put in the animation. So if you start stacking these layers, I'm actually going to show you an entirely new project. New composition, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there we go. Sure. And we're just going to take, I don't know, a couple of them. We'll take the foreground. We'll take this one. We'll take this one. And we'll start with 3. That makes it super easy. I numbered every single one of these layers to just keep it as organized as possible, and we'll just have to, sort of move those out like that. I'm actually going to bump this up to 4K because that is the original size that I made this animation at. So this is for our sake of me just showing you how all of this works. It's going to be useful for you to see this. I just love the look of Parallax art. I think it's so incredibly cool. I love seeing it in animation. It adds a lot of depth and structure to a scene, and I think it's so much fun. The method that I use to create Parallax is super, super simple. So over here on the right in the timeline, you have the parent and link, and you're going to want to take this the top layer and then parent it to the layer underneath that. Then you take the layer you just parented and you parent that to this layer here. Then you select all of these layers, hit P to get position, and now when you move one around, when you move all of them at the same time, you get the effect that we're looking for. And you can move them around, and you can let's do like a horizontal to vertical thing along the let's go with wait, how long is this animation? Oh, minute 48. Okay, so for 10 seconds we're gonna move these layers like that. You don't want to go too far so that they don't cut off or anything. Let's actually have them go up so that it sort of reveals all of these parts. I'm hitting J to go back to the last keyframe. I'm telling you, if you study keyboard shortcuts, it's going to speed up your workflow by millions of times. And now we have this really basic 3-dimensional looking animation here where that we did in less than a minute here after creating all the artwork, of course. One important thing that I want to mention is that when I did separate out all of these mountains, I did have to lasso tool every single one of them, and then after I did that, I went in and I had to use the smudge tool to get these additional little parts in here such that when the camera moves off to the side, it would not clip out and show the layer underneath it. So that's how that works. All of these layers on the top that you're seeing are like the signatures and adjustment layers, which this one here is a curves layer that just adds like a little bit of color correction that looks correct for the screen. This is something that's exclusive to the video version. Yeah, the way something is going to display on a screen is always going to be a little bit different than how it prints, right? Like things on a screen are illuminated from the back, so they're always going to be substantially brighter on a screen than they are in print, where they rely on light from outside sources to illuminate them. So let's just go on down the way. The way that I got the audio Arcturian activation by the homie Benji Bliss is what I do is I slice that layer and I move that one slice to the beginning, and then I move this other slice so that it's lined up with the very end. And then I do like a little bit of adjustment to the audio levels and just change the number of decibels so that it fades out like here. I'm just gonna undo that for the sake of keeping it clean. But yeah, you can see here the audio that's on the out layer is at -28, and then it gradually climbs upwards as it closes the loop on the other side, and then it comes right back in, and it loops in seamlessly with that part. And to make animations that you essentially do the same thing. You finish off an animation that is slightly longer than the composition. In this case, I was able to make like 30-second pre-comps, and then I would slice them off at around 5 seconds afterwards, and I would have the opacity on that layer turn up in that loop such that it would close that gap. I guess it'd be a lot easier if I just showed you like an actual example. For instance, so we'll just keep going down the layers, and I'll kind of show each one. Here, this shape layer right here is part of the wind whoosh, and all these wind whoosh pre-comps that you see here, they are essentially all of these layers that I just put into one, such that I can make them appear to be in the same general vicinity, in the same level of depth from the camera viewpoint. Yeah, and these are all like pretty simple, straightforward. I always color code my layers so that I can, know what is what. So in this case, I know that anything that's green is going to be like air or atmosphere. I'll just turn it back to green, even though the animation's finished. And here is our hero layer. You can see it's titled 02_ourheroes.psd. Like I was saying before, all of these layers are numbered in the order that they're going to go into the animation, right? So that way when I open up the file in After Effects, it's very simple and straightforward to just place them in there in the ways that they need to be. The 01 layer is the angel starshine, the angel rays that are cast down upon the mountain and really add that extra bit of atmosphere to it. It's on color dodge for some reason. Yeah, whoop-pow! So now we have these beautiful lines that are all converging in a radial form to this one point that is not on the screen here. That's the basic formula for making angel rays, and when you're up in the mountains, you actually see these when there's clouds. Like, these really exist, and you can really see the amount of atmosphere that's out there, and it's just one of the most profound things about the mountains that just blows my mind away every single time that I see it. But that layer, it looks like I actually ended up moving it down. Yeah, you can see O1 angel sun rays. Like as you develop all of your layers and assemble things together, you're going to figure out what objects are going to work where, and how to layer them. And the goal there is you want to continue parenting them to tell the camera what level of depth they're at inside of this scene. For instance, the Mandala gateway here, it is parented to our heroes, which is 2 layers above that. And that tells the camera that when we pass over this section here, this is going to be the first and foremost closest Mandala gateway that the viewer is going to see. It's going to be right there next to us, and it's going to be perfectly aligned with the foreground hill, the very first and the most detailed one that gives us visual information for how these hills actually look. What I've realized within the actual painting aspect, it's usually just like one texture or one large plant of some sort that really tells us what the texture here is. It's those little visual clues that give us that information, and our brain just interprets the entire rest of the artwork to be exactly that. Like, this clearly appears like grass. There's lots of different types of grass that grows up in the highlands. It's literally a different world than it is, down in the valley, up around like 6,000 feet, which is where the mountains of the highlands of North Carolina are. It's literally a different world. The species up there are different. There's just a different energy in the atmosphere. So we have these like curly grasses, and I wanted it to be a little bit ambiguous as to whether or not this is Earth. That's something I try and do in all of my artwork, and just subtle clues such as the floating mountain off in the distance. They can really hint at that otherworldness, and that's something that I really love about art. You can just have these little suggestions that can take the imagination of the viewer to someplace very, very far off. So yeah, these bright yellow layers here, I coded them yellow for, well, obvious reasons. And you can see, and if you look at the parent of each one, this one's parented to 051 Mountains 2, which is directly beneath that. This one is to 06 Mountains 3. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that once you have like the basic structure of something down, then all you have to do is just place and parent objects in accordance with that. If I wanted to, let's say, move this gateway thing over here, if I want to move it somewhere else, then it would still work at that same level of depth that I originally placed it. And I don't have to do any kinds of animation. The only keyframes that the Mandala gateways have is just for opacity. And using parenting, you can create very complex layered animations that seem so much more complicated than they actually are. But it's all based around a certain structure that is holding all of it together, and it's providing the positioned information for the rest of the art to move upon. You can actually do this exact same thing in Blender, but you have slightly less control as to what graphics are going to be within there. If you understand Blender really well, then you can really do a lot and take it to the next level. And I automatically added the atmospheric perspective to each of these layers. Like you can see in the further back layer, they are like very, very blue. Versus the mountains that are in front are closer to the camera, like mountains number 2 here are going to be a lot more green, and that just simulates the atmospheric perspective. It's something else that just makes me really excited about doing things this way is that, like, let's say I want to add some random cartoon scales, and I want to make them this like orange color, and let's just make like a spiral here like that. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save, and that's going to save that aspect in there, and boom, now we have these cartoon scales in this artwork, and they are moving like in the same dimension as that mountain layer. What layer is it? 05 Mountains 2. They are native to that. So you can actually go into Photoshop and you can paint artwork on here that then will translate directly into After Effects. And it should upload automatically. I think there's like a reload option. You can go here, then hit reload in case it like doesn't show up right away. But yeah, that's something that I love about the workflow of After Effects and Photoshop together, is that they just work so seamlessly well together. It means that you can really actually paint and animate the scene at the same time. In fact, I've started creating all of my paintings in Photoshop with After Effects in mind, and just considering like, how am I going to bring this to life or bring this into the third dimension by doing this exact parallax effect in After Effects. And as digital artists, this like truly takes our artwork to the next level. This gives us the ability to literally bring our images to life. And I was actually into animation before I was into painting. I learned painting just so that I could get better at animation. Okay, we're gonna make sure to Control Z those, because just for the sake of example, it's useful, but it's definitely not art I want to keep in there. So the mist clouds. So here for these subtle mist cloud layers, what we have here is a simple white solid. All of these are precomps, by the way. They're basically the exact same precomp that I just duplicated and moved around. And what these structures are here are white solids, which you can make from layer, new, white solid, or solid, and then it'll give you the option to, make it a different color. Pretty straightforward. And then I just put a mask on it. So you can see on this object here, the mask is this like curvy white thing. And as I move it around, you can see it kind of has this ripple effect. It cuts off at the borders of where the white solid actually is, because this white solid is just a long rectangle. And what's causing this this like distorted ripply sort of effect is the turbulent displace layer that I've added in here. And this gives you the ability to really customize, like, how distorted it's going to be. I use turbulent displace all the time. It's one of my all-time favorite effects for sure. I use it to make water. I use it to make air. I use it to make just so many things. You can also use it to make waterfalls without having to make any art in After Effects. That's a whole other tutorial. It works fantastic for making mist and for making like clouds that are just sort of hovering and hanging out, in between the mountains here. And that really gives life to these hills and creates that appearance of depth in the atmosphere. It makes you really feel like, when you zoom into this and when you really look closely at this artwork, which I made it in 4K for this very reason, it really translates the illusion of depth. And as you can tell, I just love clouds. I spent quite a bit of time drawing and detailing the clouds of this artwork. These are the original back cloud layers. This is back clouds 1, and then there's back clouds 2. Oh, that's sky. Yeah, we have front clouds, and then we have the back clouds. And what this does is this is what gives us the appearance of depth in the clouds. So if you notice, as I scroll through the animation, you'll see the clouds up here are moving in parallax with the clouds that are behind them. And it gives a greater feeling of depth, but it's actually only 2 layers. It's sort of a optical illusion, I guess you could say. And when you're this high up in the mountains, then you are at the level of the clouds. It's a really, really profound feeling, and that was what I intended to really communicate with this artwork. And adding all these layers in After Effects is the best way that I know how to do that. So going down, so here I have another white solid giant cloud. I left the name white solid in there because it just tells me exactly what I'm looking at, and I know that when I make like a white solid that it's going to be a cloud. I have the same effects layered on there, the turbulent displace, and then a little bit of directional blur to give some soft cloud-like edges. Is this thing on? Oh, yeah, it is on. And with the turbulent displace, it creates the effect of it being a lot more blobby than just like a regular white solid, right? So the turbulent displace is going to be interacting with the mask that is also in this that is attached to this white solid. I love water. So I made this for giant screens, and one of the little treats that I made for these giant screens is a kaleidoscopic effect that is surrounding the floating mountain up here. This part is really cool, and it's another thing that looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how that's created. I used a soft light layer mode, and of course it's parented to 09 Mountain 6, which I added floating mountain in there just so I knew that like this was the center point of the artwork itself. And if we double click that, it'll take us into the original animation that I used here. Whoop-pow. Yeah, so all that this is it's a light leak layer, which if we go into this panel here, you can see exactly what that layer is. This was a free download I got some number of years ago. That like all this is just flashes of lights and colors that kind of move around, and you can use it as like a screen layer or color dodge, and it just adds this like grainy, filmy, dramatic, emotional kind of essence to it. I have it up here on the top because this is what allows it to interact with the adjustment layer. And on this adjustment layer, which I've called Kaleido and Curves here, it has, as you might guess, a CC Kaleido effect and a Curves effect. You'll notice with the curves that I have a very wobbly line, and here I'll just redesign this so you can see what exactly that does. This is a really cool effect because it creates these lines all throughout the animation, or all throughout the composition by taking colors that would normally be like a gray gradient, and it gives them a sharp line. So for creating really incredibly complex images that just have a very sharp contrast between them, this is one of my secret weapons that I use in order to do that, because it creates these lines that flow with the flow of the imagery itself, but it creates this super sharp contrast in them that makes this like really interesting line effect. Like if we were to draw a straight line like that, that's what it would look like without the curves effect. Pretty cool, right? I'm just Control-Zing and then Control-Shift-Zing, going back and forth to show you what is happening. And you can play with these curves like any way you want. You can do whatever you want with them to make them look whatever different way that makes you happy. It's your art. It should make you happy first and foremost. We're making art to make ourselves happy. Yeah! So for something like this, I put it on a soft light layer because that just makes it not dominate the space there. For example, if I were to turn this to normal, then we would have this like very sharp, very solid looking object that's around the floating mountain, and it kind of takes away from the floating mountain in and of itself. But using soft light layers, I experimented with a lot of layers. I had it on overlay for a little while. I've also had it on color dodge, but that was like just a little bit too luminescent. You can even put it on multiply or color burn or something, or darker color, and then that also creates a cool effect. It really depends on like what you're going for in your representation of the imagery and how you want it to be perceived. In this case, I want this mountain to seem almost like a source of light, like it's the center point of this animation. So I use a soft light layer to just have this very subtle sacred geometry mandala form that is floating and hovering above the mountain. Yeah. Also, as I'm previewing it, I have I have it set to skipping 5 frames, and it's set to a quarter because the original animation of this is huge in 4K. It took 8 hours for me to render this animation with all 52 of these layers. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's probably the longest media encoder render that I've ever done. But you know what? It's worth it. I went out and I lived my life while it was rendering. I was actually surprised to come back and it was still rendering. I was literally in the process of like moving my studio around as I did this, and I wasn't able to move my computer until this was finished. And then once I got my computer to the new spot, and that's when I like actually started uploading it to the internet and making all of these things. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to make art. Do. Yeah, so that's basically the file. Oh no, there's a couple other adjustment layers here that I would love to. So one last thing with the kaleidoscope around it, I also used a mask to just get the shape of it looking correct. The mask has a little bit of feather to it, about 150 pixels here. I guess it's not a little. And that retains like the circular form such that, you know, when we go and check out the mandala clouds, I guess that's what that precomp is called, but here the layer is called kaleidocomp. It helps a lot to name your layers. Just take that like extra 5 to 3 seconds to hit enter and name those layers, such as here it would help if I added adjustment layer, kaleido, and curve. So that just tells future Brett that this is an adjustment layer, and that just makes things easier in the future so that I know what each one of these layers is doing. Some of these animations can end up taking me like a pretty long time. This one was actually fairly straightforward. Both the original artwork and the animation came together fairly quickly. What took a long time was finding and setting up the right music, and then all of the final little adjustments that went into it, such as this one here titled Horizon Haze, this one is designed to make the background just a little bit whiter, just a little bit lighter to really emphasize that atmospheric perspective and distortion. And then here we have these other layers that are these final mountain layers, which are like way in the back. We're just turning them off and on so you can see them. And then the back clouds layer for the very distant clouds. We have that there. Yep, and the last layer here is the sky layer, which is just a super basic sky gradient thing, just a bunch of soft brushed horizon lines. I will say that the colors in your artwork are what are going to make it from something that other people see and they go, oh, cool, you made art, that's cool, to them being like, oh, wow, you made that? You made that. It's all in the colors and the lighting. If you can nail down those fundamental aspects that create dimension in an artwork and that will point the viewer's attention using the composition into a really specific spot of the painting. For example, in this one, so in this is the final visual version for VJs, which is in 1080p, plays nice and smooth on my PC. I really wanted this floating mountain here to be the centerpiece of this artwork. And to do that, I made the kaleido effect that is circling around it, that is showing that this place just has like a really mystical, really magical energy. And to get all of these elements to loop seamlessly, all of those layers that I showed you in After Effects, how I would do that is simply whenever I keyframe something in the beginning of the animation, I suppose I should show you. Whenever I would set a keyframe in the beginning of the animation, such as right here, I would set that exact same keyframe at the end. So when you're building a parallax animation such as this, it's really essential that you have the same flow and the same ease in all of the keyframes here. That gives you a smooth flow and transition between each one of the layers, because you want each one of them to be moving in sync in their motion, but not with different eases of their motion, because then it'll look like something is like moving a little bit faster than another. Like one mountain is moving kind of fast while another one is moving not so fast. So like here we can create a perfect example, and now one of these mountains in the back is going to just do a random, see, look at that. Yep, it does a little bit of a bump. That one's way in the back, so it's a little bit harder to see. But you get the general idea. Once you get the general motion down of each one of these layers, then that structure is what you're going to commit to. If you make any changes to it at all, you're going to want to select every single position of each one of these mountain layers. At this point, it's like so stupidly complicated for me to show you, so I'm just going to show you with these three. But you want to go into each of the original position keyframes and select those, and make sure that all of those lines in the graph editor, which is this symbol right here, if you don't know, that all of those are moving in sync and that they all have the same flow to them. That part is super important, but like I said, if you get like the basic structure of it down, like how this animation started was basically just each one of these. It started with the original layers that I showed you. I imported every single one of them at once, and then just parented the one on top to the one on the bottom, and just so on and so forth, and selected the position for every single one of those, and then set a keyframe for it. And that gives us the superpower of making parallax animations using After Effects. This is one of my favorite effects to use. I would love to see what you guys create using these effects in the future. Thank you so much for watching this. I am super grateful for your attention, and I hope that this inspires you or helps you or gives you some insights into how to create super cool animations in After Effects. I would love to see what you create from watching this tutorial. Thank you so much. So yeah, those are my secret weapons in After Effects that I use to make animated paintings. It is time consuming. It requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of imagination. It requires a real fascination for just experimenting with layers, because a lot of what you're just seeing, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into that, to making all these objects move in sync with each other and also work with their color, with their shading, with their value. The result, though, is an incredibly satisfying animated painting that will be appreciated by generations. So to me, the amount of time that it takes to make these is 100% worth it. My goal is to make an NFT gallery one day that is full of these animated paintings, and I'm probably going to make animations of every single one of my paintings. When we just dive into something, then our brain is automatically going to start looking for solutions to the problems that we are experiencing. We all have access to this nearly infinite library of information that has never existed in all of humanity. I love doing this kind of work. I love creating these animated paintings. I love making artwork that inspires and shows these deep inner visions that have truly inspired me when I'm out exploring the world, and then translating them into a very heavily layered, complex animation that not only shows something super spectacular, but also moves and expresses the life of the world around us, to create representations of nature that will inspire people to protect our Mother Gaia in a way that is sustainable for all future generations. I believe it's possible. I hope it's inspired some people. I would love to see what ripple effects me making this video and sharing this this approach to making animations in After Effects has. I'll probably do videos like this in the future, so if you guys like it, I'll be extra motivated if you tell me that you like it. Do something that future you will be stoked that you did today. Have a good night.